Greetings, dear, precious, magnificent spirit soul, divine person, eternal being. You know, we're the eternals. You got to get that. Breathe into your heart, out of your mind. The key here is to bring the power right back to yourself instead of giving it out to everybody and everything. So you have divine power. You are divine energy, divine power. That's who you are. All right. Having prospering relationships. What I say is, I am prosperity. If you'd like to say that, I am prosperity. Say it again. I am prosperity. One more time. I am prosperity. Well, what does that mean? It means to go forth with enthusiasm to do what you want, as long as it's good for all. What does that mean? You're not purposely going out to harm or hurt a human or an animal so you can have some sense pleasure and think that's okay because it's your preference and it's your truth. Well, you know, it doesn't fit absolute truth, and the sorrow and the terror that you bring into your own experience is the sorrow and the terror that we then bring out in relationships. And what happens is, unless we're conscious about who we are, even families are the training ground of insanity. People going to work, that's got to, in the business world, and all the people there with their minds going, and their jealousies and their envy and their anger and their fear and their resentment and the stories and the games they're playing and all. It's just, see, we're not meant to live in cities all piled together in big groups like that. You know, you want to be close enough where you have friends and support. You're there to help others. But you have your space. You have your place. Because if you don't have your place, your centered place, how can you be with anybody? Because we're just so scattered all the time and always reacting to what's going on in the news or out in the world or with the people in our family or what they're thinking of us and what they're talking about us and what they're going to do here and what they're going to do now. This is the mind. It's going to keep you always in chaos and confusion. And here's something really powerful in relationship, and that is to grant the other person their own beingness. You acknowledge that there's a person there and they're not a thing for you to use. And what happens when you find so much abuse in the world and what people are going in personally, because give up torturing yourself. Because if you're going to torture yourself, you're going to torture everybody else as well. And how's that torture? You're going to torture yourself mentally. There are people that don't know how to sleep. They can't stop the mind. They can't stop talking. They can't stop any of that. And they can't even stop and control what they're eating and what they're drinking or they're taking into their bodies. They're so out of control that everything, their senses, and it says in the ancient teachings of the Vedas of India, and because you find truth wherever you find truth, I'm saying, but you know the absolute truth is consistent and works for everybody. It's the basis, the foundation of who we are and how we function and what we are. And what happens is that the happiness and the pain, the suffering, comes from the mind first. And it's that sense of getting a thought or an idea that generates fear within. And then you notice that then fear becomes the basis of our relationships or of scarcity or it becomes accounting. I did this for you, you did this for me. That's why there was a student I used to work for, and she was a professional, she was a prostitute for a while, she said. And she said that for her that was the best way to be even in a relationship that meant was sex, that you were paid for it. And then that would be fine. Well, okay, that's your thing. But then again, everything then has a numerical value. Everything has a money value. Everything is I did this for you, you did this for me. Well, here is something. If we're involved in loving reciprocal relationships, we do give and receive. And what you want to be is you want to be open to giving and receiving in relationship. And how you notice that also, there's no way that we can put a monetary value on our relationships. Business, you can put monetary value, and a lot of people do that. Money in relationship. Get married because you need the money, or I think I did that once. I don't know. No, I'm joking. Not really, but it wasn't that. It was a home. That was what it was. But we do these kind of things, and then our relationships, instead of being satisfying and fulfilling, become also another way to feel bad about ourselves, to have conflict, to have worry, to have troubles. People say, what's the matter? Are you okay? Never ask anybody what's the matter and are you okay, truly. Because you can tell whether they're okay or not. And then when you always say, what's the matter? Are you okay? Then you start taking their stuff on like you did it. Well, you can notice what's going on. I remember a woman in counseling one time said that her husband had left her and she had no idea about that, how it happened. I said, how could somebody be so dense that you didn't even know what was going on or you couldn't perceive it? Because we get so wrapped up within our own selves and the confusion, and people become things. They're not persons. They're not people with feelings and people who are, just precious souls. And then we take on these other characteristics in order to so-called survive. You don't need, survival is not a plan for you because you are life itself. You can't die. That's ridiculous. You are life itself. That's who you are. You are eternity. That's also who you are. So when we use people as things, we're always saying, well, how can I use you? Well, I could use you for this, and I could use you for that. And so people are using each other. And it's the same thing in money or anything. Is that you can buy it, you can pay for it, you can get it, and you can do anything. There's a lot of people that do anything for money because they say, well, I have to survive. But they have no understanding of who they are, and what they do is their own, this is their stuff. And this is done to them, and what they've done is to kill the soul, and to kill and to destroy and put down who they really are. And we've all done stuff like that at some. If we followed the mind, if you followed the thoughts in their mind, you want to get even. You carry grudges. You have angers, resentment. Your childhood story is monotonous, but it's over and over and talking and then and this. And everybody's. How can you be now if you're living in the past? How can you be now and create a beautiful future if you're just dragging what was, all the old movies, all the old, whether it's Shakespeare, it's psychology, it's Nostradamus, it's even the book of Revelation, and come, wait a minute. These are powerful stories. But they're told as if this is absolute and this is the way it is. And it's always going to be this. Give up the never-ending story. I thought that movie was really stupid. The never-ending, repetitive, monotonous, ridiculous story of birth and death, and then something happens in between, and ain't mine. That's not my story. And I'm tired of stories. See, everybody's got one. And the story, then you hear, are you the victim in it? Okay, so you got to have torturers, you got to have the victim, you got to do this, you got to prove you're right and they're wrong. You got to prove you're good and they're bad. So everything's about the game. And you know how you know the game? You know it when it's over. You know why you got in it, because when it's over, after all I did, that was the game. Oh, after, they didn't love me like they should. I knew they loved somebody else more than me. They gave somebody else more attention than they gave me. So that shows they didn't love me enough. What do you mean? You don't even like yourself. What are you talking about? Stop torturing yourself, and then other people can't torture you because you're not involved in it and you're not agreeing. The key, recognize that there are people out there, beings, divine beings, talented, able, gifted, magnificent, and glorious. And most people, they're just walking around like they're on a treadmill, or they're on a program, or they're like a robot of some kind, and they're missing out on the juice, on the goodies, on the sweetness, on the fun, on the joy, and on the pleasure. Because they're saying, well, I finally get this done, I'll be okay. When those people finally die and leave me their money, then I'll be okay. I knew Patty, what was her name? Doris Duke. She's one of the richest women in the world. She invited me to her home and such, and was interested in spiritual matters. She's very interested. So who bumps her off? The butler. Bumped her off, got all her money. And then what did he do? Commit suicide. What, 2 years after? Poor soul. Tormented soul. The money was going to do it for him. Money was going to, hadn't done it for Doris Duke. She was called the most unhappy little rich woman in the world. But you know what her happiness did? Or unhappiness? She did start looking in spiritual matters to find out who she really is and who she, all about her. Okay? So, everybody is a person. Real persons have compassion. And then how you have prospering relationships is, do you feel empowered around certain people or depowered? Do you feel acknowledged and recognized and other people you don't? Okay, first of all, acknowledge and recognize yourself. Empower yourself. Then no matter how they treat you, you don't let them control how you feel or what you do at all. And in the other part, you're not waiting and you're not living in old stories and old dramas, and you're not killing love so you can prove that someone else harmed or hurt you back 40 years ago, 20 years ago, 1 minute ago. Every moment is a fresh start. Every moment is a new, fresh moment. Whatever you bring into it, you're going to be experienced because you brought that in. And where did it come from? The mind, the memory. The other minds, all their memories, all their games, all their rituals, where you play in the family. Well, my brother had all the talent, and I really didn't. Oh, my friend was my sister was the athlete, and I was the artist. You think everybody gets a pie, a family? Well, here's art, here's music, here's this. Everybody gets one little slice. You have it all. That's what I love about my main teacher, Haridas Shastri Maharaj Babaji, because don't worry about the names. Everybody, old man in India is called Baba. So who's Baba? Any old man in India is called Baba. That's just the way it is. I lived there for 4 years. It was fabulous. But yeah. See, what he said, you can do anything. And you don't work in levels to make it. You don't next lifetime get better. You don't do it. No, it's all now. And all is possible to you. And in relationship, have the relationship with your source, your partner, your beloved, and you'll have a relationship that's prospering with everybody else. Mm-hmm.